let's work on 53 for you. So first of all, 4x squared equals 11x plus 3. What do we have to do in order to solve this question?
Move the equal sign.
Move it over, yes. So we're gonna move this to the left side and move this to the left side. What happens when you move a term from an equation to the opposite side of the equation? It switches signs. So if it's positive, it changes to negative. And if it's positive, it also changes to negative again. So we're gonna get 4x squared minus 11x minus 3, and then we can factor it. So we're going to use the factoring method that I've been teaching you for a while. So take the 4x squared, except you keep the 4x, but you drop the square on the x. So put the 4x in both parentheses, and then what do you do with the sign, the negative sign? The first negative sign, you drop it down, and then you multiply the negative sign together with the other negative sign. What's a negative times a negative?
Positive.
Good job.
So smart.
And then you do the big rainbow, and you do 4 times 3, and you don't have to worry about the negative because you've already taken care of that. So what's 4 times 3 if you ignore the negative? And now you break that down into 1 times 12, or 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. And which pair of numbers are the right ones that can go in these blank spaces?
Hold on, let me get my calculator out.
Yes, 12 and 1, because I put 12 there and 1 there, then the 12 will become negative and the 1 will stay positive. And then you'll have negative 12 plus 1, which adds up to what? Negative 11, right? So by the way, do you like when the football announcer says for Friends University, and then you have to say first down?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? That's good. So 4x minus 12 times 4x plus 1. And then what's on the other side of the equation? What's on the other side?
Write it out.
0. Yep, 0. Yep, so you have 4x minus 12 and times 4x plus 1 equals 0. Now tell me real quick, is this the right final factors, or are these the wrong final factors? They're wrong. What do I have to do to make the wrong ones right? Get rid of I have to cancel out anything that's an extraneous number, right? Extraneous factor. So does this parentheses have any extraneous factors in it? No, so that one's fine, actually. What about the other one? Well, what number needs to get rid of in that one? 4, correct. So you have x minus 3 times 4x plus 1. Good job. And now, how do I break it apart into 2 problems instead of 1? 2 small problems out of 1 big problem. Equal that to 0, and equal that to 0. And the first one, I can just use the common sense and just move the negative 3 to the other side, which makes positive 3. The other one, I'd have to move the 1 over to negative 1. Then I have to divide by 4 as another step. Presto. Good job. So the solutions are negative 1/4 and 3 to the problem. So who wants to be the lucky person to have me work on your next question out of your homework for the example for class? Perfect. Good job, Brooke. What's your question 53? What does it say?
No.
Let me get a chair to sit down on, by the way. I just said, let me get a chair to sit down on. What does your question say? That's all right. Let me go back while you're looking for that. Let me go back and show people the page with 52 on it in case anybody didn't get it written down yet. By the way, did any of you pre-order an iPhone 17?
Oh my gosh. Another one? It's 5x squared.
Yeah.
5x squared?
64 minus 21.
54 minus 21x. Perfect. Is that all? So we're going to have to also get this one equal to 0. So this one's not only as bad as the last one, but it's a little bit better. So because it's out of order. So we need to actually put the x, the 21x needs to be moved first. If you move a negative 21x to the other side, it becomes positive 21x. Then after that, at the end, we can move the 54 over. And if you move a positive 54 over, you'll get a negative 54. And then you'll have 0 on the right side. Now I try to factor a common factor out, but the only factor that goes into 5 is 1 and 5. And 5 does not go into 21. So there's no common factor I can factor out. So after trying to factor out a common factor and there's none, what do you try next if there's no common factor? Then you can try that new special factoring method. So we're gonna keep the 5x in both parentheses, drop the square. Then what do we do with the plus? Bring down that first plus, and then what do we do with the plus and the minus together? Multiply them. So what's the positive times the negative? Negative. Then we put down the negative. And now we multiply the 5 times the 54. Wow, this is a tough problem.
This is terrible.
What's 5 times 54? Is it 270? 250 plus 20 is 270, yeah. Oops, I almost read on 270 in the answers. That would not be right. So put 270 off to the side. And what do I have to do with the 270? Break it down until what? Adds up to 21, which is going to be a long way away. So 1 times 270. Wow. 2 times 135. 3 times 90. Bother. This is why factoring takes so long. Did you know that factoring is one of the longest things, and the people are still trying to figure out if there's a quicker way of thinking of all the factors of numbers. So if you can invent a quicker way to think of all the factors of numbers, then you'll be really smart. And then 4 times 4, I don't think 4 goes into it though. 9 and what? 9 and 30? Ah, smart. So which one goes in the first box out of 9 times 30? 30, correct. And then 9. And then are there any extraneous factor? And the reason for that is because 30 times 9 makes 270, but 30 plus negative 9 equals 21. Are there any extraneous factors in any of those two parentheses? Yeah, and the first one, we need to get rid of a 5. So then it's x plus 6 times 5x minus 9 equals 0. Then I need to set them both to, actually, the first one, it's so simple, I don't really need to set it to 0. Can anybody tell me the solution to the first one immediately? Negative 6, correct. The second one, I'll set it equal to 0 and then solve it. So 5x would equal what? Positive 9, right? Divide by 5 and you'll get x equals 9 divided by 5. So by the way, if you work from 9 to 5, then you'll have a career. So the answers are negative 6 and then 9 over 5. Perfect. By the way, would you rather work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. or from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.?
7 to 4.
Yeah, because then you would miss the rush hour. Okay, perfect. Any questions about 53? Okay, who wants to be lucky and have me work on your question 54? Anybody have your 54 that you want me to, you can tell me your numbers and I can help you with that for the example since I forgot my notes. Anybody else? If you want it, you want to do it? Okay. So who wants to go for, I'll let you go first and then you can go next. So, 8x squared equals 3x, and that's question 54, right? So once again, we have to set it equal to 0. So now, by the way, on this question, some of you that are actually creative, sometimes people that are smart, actually think of other ways of doing it, but then sometimes it comes back to bite you though, because not because it's actually because if you're too smart, sometimes it can actually hurt you. Some people have tried this. They're like, wait, I can divide both sides by x, and then it'll cancel out the x, and then you just get 8x equals 3. Have you ever tried doing that before? And then you can like divide by 8 to get the answer. Except, you know what the only problem with that is though? You cannot cancel out the answer that you're trying to find. What you actually did by dividing by x and canceling the x is you eliminated one of the x's, which gets rid of one of the answers. So when you're solving an equation for x, the one thing you do not want to do is to divide by x, because then you'll like literally get rid of your own answer. So even though that's a really creative idea, we're going to still do this the same old way, and we're going to set it equal to 0 by moving over the 3x to the opposite side. And now we can factor out a common factor of x, because there's an x in common. That leaves me with 8x, take away 3 left over. And remember, the x by itself is also a factor. So I'm going to put parentheses around it, not because I necessarily need them, because you don't need parentheses around just one single term by itself. But I'm putting parentheses around them anyway, just to remind you that that's really a factor of its own, even though it's a very small factor. So what do you do after factoring it out? You take each factor and set it equal to 0. And now the first factor is so simple that even just by setting it equal to 0, that's already the answer itself. So x equals 0 is the answer already. The other one, though, is not the answer already. What do I need to do to find the answer? Add 3 to both sides. And then you divide by 8. And so there's 2 answers. The 2 answers are 0 and 3/8. Isn't that a strange word, eighths? One of the hardest words I think to say is sixths, because you have to say like at the end of it. What's the hardest word that you know of to pronounce? What? Okay, so then who wants to have me do your number 55? You can do, Mason, you said your hand was raised, right? So 55. By the way, have you ever done push-ups before? Have you ever done the terrible 10 of push-ups before? Or you do 1 and then you do 2 and then you stand up and then you do 3 and then you stand up and then you do 4 and then you keep going until you get to 10. The total of all the push-ups you do if you do the terrible 10 is 55 total. So what does your question 55 say, Mason? 16x squared equals 81. Is that right? So once again, we're going to solve this by getting it equal to 0. 16x squared minus 81 equals 0. Now, once you do that, we're going to factor it, except we're going to use one of those special factoring shortcuts, though. This is in the form of a minus b, and can you do the cube root of a and b, or can you just do the square root of a and b? Square root, right. So we're going to do the square root shortcut. So take the square root of a, of the 16x squared, and you'll get what? What's the square root of 16? 4. Square root of x squared is x. Keep the sign from the middle, and then take the square root of the 81, which is 9. And then you multiply it by the conjugate, which is like a plus b instead of a minus b. Boom. And then you solve that. Now you set each factor into its own small equation. So set that equal to 0. Set that equal to 0. There we go. And then add 9 to the other side. So you get positive 9. Subtract 9 onto the other side. You get negative 9. Divide by 4. And then you get 9/4. And then divide by 4 and you get negative 9/4. Like that. So the answers are 9/4 and also negative 9/4. Okay, now who would like me to help you on your number 56? Anybody willing to volunteer your numbers? Okay, wait, are you the same one? Okay, so you can't be the same one unless nobody else wants to do it. So is there anybody who hasn't done it yet? Who wants to volunteer your numbers?
What the?
So don't think of it as like cheating. You're actually helping other people learn by
56?
yeah, 56.
I don't.
Does it not have numbers?
Parentheses.
Oh, it's in parentheses.
Say that out loud.
Oh, it's x plus x minus 2 times x plus 6. Minus 2 and positive 6 equals 9. So minus 2 and positive 6 equals 9. So this actually is a trick question because once again, if you try to be creative, it's actually good to be creative as long as you're careful with being creative. If you're creative, you might think, wait, you could just it's already factored out, so you could just set it equal to 9. Would that work? Would it work to just set x minus 2 equals 9 and x plus 6 equals to 9? Would that work? You can't, and you can't do that, but why can't you do that though? That looks kind of logical. Well, because I'll tell you why. Because the thing is, if this really equals 9, this equals 9, then that means this is also equal to 9, and this is also equal to 9. And well, 9 times 9 is not 9, right? So if you're setting them both equal to 9, you're basically saying that 9 times 9 equals 9, which isn't true. Now, it is true that 0 times 0 is equal to 0, but it's not true that 9 times 9 equals 9. So you can't do it like that. Instead, you have to do it like, you have to actually, so this is one thing where you actually have to work, you have to go backwards a step. So even though it's already factored, you have to undo the factoring. How do you undo factoring? Foiling, right. So x times x is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 8x. No. I did that in the wrong order. Hold on. Okay, I'm doing the foiling in the wrong order. What's the next step you're supposed to do? First, outside, inside, last. I forgot to do the inside ones. So after distributing the x times x, I did the x times 6. Now what comes next? Negative 2 and s, right. Yep. I got to make sure that my mind is focused on my math. There we go. Now I have to combine the terms. So what's 6x minus 4x? It's positive. Sorry. So what's 6x minus 2x? It's 4x. And now what do I do with the 9 on the other side? Subtract it. So I got to have 0 on the outside.
Oh,
So x squared plus 4x. What's negative 12 minus 9? Negative 21. So how's that? X squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. There we go. There we go. Perfect. So this stands for after being 2 awesome, because of the power of 2, and having 4 classes a day for like 4x, and then you played a game of 21 in basketball with your friends, then it equaled 0. That means you had 0 energy left, and then you fell asleep. So every math problem is like a story of your life. How do I solve this math problem at this point? I have to factor it. So even though it was factored at the beginning, the factors at the beginning were equal to 9, so they were useless. Now we have to factor it again because now they'll be equal to 0 and it'll be useful instead of useless. So there we go. So how do I factor out x squared? I basically just drop the square, and then I keep the sign from the plus 4, and I multiply the plus times the minus, and I get a minus. Then I multiply the invisible 1 times the 21, which is 21. And then I break that down into 1 times 21, or 3 and 7. And which one? Whoa, is there going to be anything else that works? Yeah, I don't think anything's going to work because, no, wait, it does. Never mind. It's a 7. It has to equal 4. It has to equal 4. So put the positive 7 and then the 3. My brain almost started to jump into like fright mode, like panic mode.
you scared me.
Okay, so if you put a positive 7 and a negative 3, it equals 4. Did you know that sometimes if in math, if you're afraid that there's no answer, it can like make you panic a little bit? Do you ever feel that way? Okay, so then the answer would be, since x is all the way by itself with nothing beside it, that means x is equal to the opposites of the numbers that are in the parentheses. So x equals -7 and +3. How's that? Good job. Okay, who wants to volunteer to get some free help by helping others on number 57? So what, does anybody want to volunteer what your problem 57 says? What about one of you fine boys?
Oh, you got it.
Do you have some numbers for problem 57? That's all right. Did you find it?
I'm still.
Mm. Does anybody already have 57 pulled up? And maybe you could do 58. Yes. What does your 57 say?
X cubed plus 4x squared minus 5x minus 100.
Minus 100? Wow, this is making me panic a little bit. X to the third plus 4x squared minus 25x minus 100 equals 0. Did I write it down correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think on this one, we're supposed to factor by grouping. So I'm going to try the basic way of grouping first, which is to just group them in pairs of 2. So what's the common factor from the first group of 2 terms? I think it would be x squared. Yes. And then you have a +4 left over with the extra 1. Then you factor out a negative common factor of -25 from that. That leaves you with the positive x and a +4. So how's that? Does that look good, Braden? And then now what happens after doing the grouping, if it works correctly? Now, by the way, when you're learning this, it always seems easy, but there are some problems that it doesn't work correctly the first time and you have to try like a different group of pairs of groups. So that's why it can be frightening to do this. But if it does work easily though, then you'll already have one thing that's the same. So x plus 4 and x plus 4 they're the same. So they're called common factors. I need to take one of them out. So I'll just take the first one out. And then when you take it out, you put the rest of it in parentheses. So if you take out the x plus 4 from the x squared, you'd have only x squared left. If you take out the x plus 4 from the 25, you'd have only the -25 left. Like that. And we're not done yet because we still can factor out the x squared minus 25 because it's an a minus b, and you can do the square root of both the a and the b. So what's the square root of x squared? X. And then what's the square root of 25? 5. So keep the sign and the same in the first one and then the opposite in the second one. Now, the x term has a coefficient of 1 in each of those parentheses. So it's just x and then a number and then x and then a number, then x and then a number. So that means that the solution is the opposites of those numbers. So the solution is -4, +5, and -5. So that's the solution. Good job. And then now, just a second, Gage, right?
Yeah.
Now you can tell me the numbers for question 58, for your question 58.
X cubed plus 3x squared equals 16x plus 1.
Wow. X cubed plus 3x squared equals 16x plus 48. This is such a beautiful problem, we'd be ashamed to solve it. Not really. So we're going to move these 2 terms over to the left side, right? There we go. Boom. And then we're going to try to factor it by grouping again. So the first group, I think it's going to work again pretty easy. What's in common to the first group? X squared. And then what's left over after you take out an x squared? 1x is left and 1 3 is left, right? Take out a negative 16 from the second group. And then what's left? Positive x and a positive. What number is left? Let's see, it's like 16 times 2 is 32. 16 times 3 is 48. So it'd be a positive 3. Now we take the common factor, which is the x plus 3, take that one to the front, and then put the rest of it in parentheses. If you take out the x plus 3, you'd only have x squared left and the negative 16 left. Like that. And we're not done yet, though, because x squared minus 16 can still be square rooted and taken further down. So we're going to do that. So take the square root of the x squared, get x. Keep the minus, take the square root of 16, get 4. And then take the other side, x plus 4. And then what are the solutions to this equation after factoring it this far? It is what? -3, +4, and -4, correct. By the way, did you know that if you were lucky in the old days, you could get like a doctor's degree in math for proving things that were pretty simple because nobody had proved them yet. So the person who proved the fundamental theorem of algebra that every equation could be factored and that the solutions were the opposite of the numbers and the factors, he got like a PhD. So would you like to get a PhD from proving that that's the correct answers are the opposites of the numbers? Although I'm somewhat exaggerating though, because he actually had to prove that you can always factor every single problem some way or another with some complex number. And that was a very, very hard thing to prove. So he actually did deserve his PhD. But part of what he proved was easy though. So any questions about that? Okay, who is ready to give me an example of problem number 59? Has anybody not given me numbers yet? How about Colin? Do you have some numbers? What about Ian? Do you have some numbers? Do you have any numbers for question number 59? On chapter 5?
Yeah,
So what numbers do you have in that question?
I got 2x, what is it?
2x
Cube.
cubed
Yeah, plus 28x squared plus 96x.
equals 0. Perfect. So 2x cubed plus 28x squared plus 96x equals 0. I think I'm just going to quit doing math now. No, because actually this one is a big problem, but it has a common factor which will make it easier. Notice every number is an even number, and also every number has an x in it. So we're going to take out a 2 and an x, like that. And then if you take out the 2 and an x, you'll only have 2 powers of 2 of x left. If you take out a 2 from 28, you'll have 14 left. By the way, did you know that there's somebody who won gold medal in Olympic figure skating when she was only 14? Did you know that? Wouldn't that be crazy? You should look up somebody named Tara Lipinski. I forgot when she did it though, but that's the youngest person in the world. And then take 2 out of a 96, you'll get 48, and the x comes out, and then you have no x left over. So after taking out the common factor, the problem becomes a lot easier. So it's just 2x in front, and then x squared plus 14x plus 48. And then what do you do next? Well, you have to break down the, oh, by the way, actually, you could even factor out the 2, actually. We could actually factor the 2 out to be by itself. You want to do that? So we can break both parts into 2 separate factors. 2 can break apart from the x, and then the x squared plus 14x plus 48 can break apart into x times x. And then what do I do next? I bring down that plus sign, and it comes down. And I multiply plus times plus is a plus. And then 1, by the way, did you know that there's a kind of phone that's talking about if you have only one plus sign, and it's called 1 plus. Does anybody have a 1 plus phone? You don't know, you haven't heard about that? So I just thought you'd think that was a funny joke about 1 plus, but. So a plus and then a plus. Somebody needs to have a phone called 2 plus, better than 1 plus. So 1 times 48 is what? 48, right? 48. There we go. Now, I have to break 48 down into what? Pairs of numbers. 1 times 48, 2 times 24, 3 times 16. Oh, wait, we got to it. John 3:16. Okay, good job. Can anybody say? Yes, 8 and 6. Yeah, you're right. And then 8 and 6 adds up to 14. You're right. So smart. And the solutions to it are the opposites of the numbers in the parentheses, except there's only a solution where there's the letter X. So sometimes people accidentally think that 2 is the solution. They think the solution is X equals 2, but there's no X with that 2. So that 2 does not represent one of the solutions. Remember, you only have a solution where you have the letter X because you're solving for X. So you have a solution for this one though. Who can tell me what the solution is for that X? 0. Because technically there's nothing with that X, so therefore the answer is 0. What's the solution for the next parentheses? What's the opposite of 8? Yep. So remember, the opposite of 8 is -8. So if you went to the cafeteria and you didn't have good things that you ate, that means you -8. Then +6. What's the opposite of +6? Correct. So the solutions are 0, -8, -6. Okay, who has question 60? Who wants me to do question 60? Are we done? Sweet.
So we're done?
Well, no, but we're not done because I worked like really hard. No, I worked really hard on getting like a bunch of things ready for like the next step. And that's why I forgot to bring the right things, is because I was working ahead on the wrong things. But I'll make a deal. We can just do one problem
And then go.
And then lunch.
and then lunch. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Should I make you do a hard problem or an easy problem? Hard. Okay, I'll do an important problem. It'll be hard, but yet easy though as well. So, okay, ready? So this is actually going to be an example like not on this test, but on the next test. That's why it's important. So this is not question 1 in your homework. So 10y squared plus 16y plus 11 over 8y squared plus 14y. Now, before you panic, don't worry. I assure you it's not as bad as it looks. It looks terrible though. You're probably like, your temperature is probably rising like. Guess why this is not as bad as it looks? Because the common denominator is already the same. So when you're subtracting fractions, the first step is to get a common denominator. Once you have a common denominator, then what do? All you do is just join it together into the common denominator, and then you distribute the subtraction. So that just joins together into the same common denominator. So basically 2 fractions become 1. And then you just like 2 people become 1 when you get married, the same kind of deal. So kind of romantic. So 10y squared minus 4y squared is what? Correct. And then what is 16y minus -7? That's a tricky one. What's 16y minus a -7y? It's actually a plus, because a minus and minus is a plus. So what's 16 plus 7? 16 plus 7 is 23, like Michael Jordan, right? So Michael Jordan would approve of this problem. And then what's 11 minus -9? 11 minus a negative is what? It's a plus, right? So what's 11 plus 9? 20. 20, yep. So are we done yet? No, you're right. Good job, very smart. We have to simplify it. So let me just take a quick peek. So yeah, it does say simplify your answer. No, I like the ones that say don't simplify your answer, because then you can stop at this point. But it says, unfortunately, on this instructions, it says simplify your answer. So this is the correct answer, but it's not simplified, so you won't get credit for it, sadly. We have to factor it. So, by the way, once you're done with chapter 5 and learning about factoring, you'll just constantly see more factoring and more problems not all problems, but many problems in the future you'll have to factor in order to finish them. So we need to factor the top. How do I factor the top? So really chapter 6 is actually just more of chapter 5 because there's just more factoring to do. So you drop the 6. No, you don't drop the 6. What do you drop? You drop the square. So keep the 6, but drop the square from the y. And then what do I do next? I keep the plus sign that's in front of the 23. I bring the first sign down, and then what do I do next? Multiply the signs together. What's a plus times a plus? Plus. And then what's 6 times 20? 120, I think. And then I do the descend to the bottom. I drop the squared from the bottom, and I keep the 8. So 8y, 8y. I keep the plus sign. Then I multiply the plus times the minus. That's a minus. 8 times negative 15, except ignore the negative though. 8 times 15 is, let me think, 80 plus 40, 120. So that's 120. So, uh-oh, I made a mistake. I made a huge mistake. I put the 120 in the wrong spot, didn't I? You're not supposed to put the 120 right there. The 120 is what you're supposed to break down. So 6 times 20 is equal to 120. Let me change to blue so you can see it more, so you can see it separately, or purple, I guess. So 6 times 20 is actually 120. That's not the final answer, though. What does 120 break down into? 1 times 120, 2 times 60, 3 times 40, 4 times... Why is my brain going slow? 4 times 30. 4 times 30. 5 times 20. 5 times 24. Right? 6 times 20. 7, 8. 8 times 15. That would be it. That'd be it. 8 and 15. What is 8 plus 15? 23. So if I put an 8 here and a 15 there, it'll work. Okay, now the bottom number, we already did, in the bottom, we had 8 and 15. So we already said 8 times 15 is actually also equal to 120. So we can use the same 120, except it'll be a different pair of numbers this time, though. So which pair of numbers out of 120 is going to go in these two boxes down here? So which pair of numbers adds up to 14? 6 and 20, yes. So, and I'll put a positive 20 first, and then 6 with the negative sign next. Whoa, is that a thunder? Cool. Oh no. Yeah, this is awful. So now we need to break them down. Okay, ready? So we need to eliminate the common factors, and then we can once we finish this, we can go. So divide by 4, because 4 is a common factor of that. Divide by 2, because 2 is a common factor of that. So in the bottom, we'll have 2y plus 5, and then we'll have 4y minus 3. And then if I divide the top one, what's the common factor of 6 and 8? 2. If I divide that by 2, I'll have 3y plus 4. What's the common factor of 6 and 15? 3. Then I'd have 2y plus 5. Now the 2, what happens to the 2y plus 5 that you have on the top and bottom? They cancel. So the final answer is, it is equal to, hold on, it's equal to 3y plus 4 over 4y minus 3. So that's your like sneak peek problem for chapter 6. And then you can, so we can stop there. You can go to run to the cafeteria before the rain hits or whatever. So good job, everybody.